Hey, this is Zara at ReviewZoneHD, and this ain't your mama's Tomb Raider, no sir. It takes the word reboot and runs it around the block a few times. This game's gotten rave reviews across the board from every major reviewer this week, and after playing through it myself, I'll have to say I'm on board. It pulls some of the best elements from a few of the great games of this generation, including Assassin's Creed and the Uncharted series, while still setting some distance from the rest of the pack through its visual style, story, creativity, and presentation. It provides plenty of eye-popping set pieces, along with some pretty bloody good combat that may shock some of the old-school fans of the series. I did have a few nitpicks and one major complaint with the game, so without further delay, let's get into the review. There were a lot of things about the graphics that kind of stood out to me, but the thing that really caught my attention was the fire and how it illuminated its surroundings, how it reacted when it fizzled out, and the small particles that fluttered through the air. It's one of the best looking uses of fire that I've ever seen in a video game, and it's the little touches like that that makes this game really stand out, and you can tell just from the amount of detail and polish that was placed in every aspect of the environment that this is one of the best looking games for the console. Laura does a lot of subtle movements like turning her head or waving a torch at a wall as you're walking by that makes her seem more lifelike, almost like you're there next to her and just along for the ride, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because she's pretty easy on the eyes. It's also worth mentioning that the camera movement when you're traversing up and down mountains, inside of buildings, or even in closed-in narrow hallways of a cave, all focused on the best possible positioning and angle without ever getting in the way, which if you've played some of the older games in the series, this will certainly be a much welcome treat, as that was an ongoing issue between a few of the older titles. There were times that the music felt like it was pulled straight out of a horror movie for the more intense sections, but it also eased up and had some light-hearted tracks to help shift the mood of the game back and forth. They also did a great job of matching the on-screen events to the soundtrack, similar to what you would expect out of a blockbuster motion picture. Every voice actor delivered their lines with believable emotion, and the environmental sound effects such as the constant hiss of the rain, the crack of lightning during storms, or the chirping of birds during the peaceful moments were all overly impressive, never overbearing, but it let you know it was there. The only thing I personally wasn't impressed with in the sound category was the sound effects for the weapons, which became even more noticeable when going online. They just didn't sound like they have that gleeful force behind the firepower that you're letting loose that so many other games have done a much better job of lately. Yes, Laura's spider sense is tingling and it helps you find ammo, locate enemies, food, or in other terms animals that you skin and eat for experience points. You actually end up hunting and killing enough animals to make even PETA blush a little bit. Toss in a lot of bloodthirsty wolves that seem to enjoy stalking you, and it almost feels like you're in the movie The Grey at times. Man, the ending to that movie sucked. Back on topic, I'm not a fan of QuickTime events. In fact, I absolutely loathe them being in almost any game that I play these days, but the way that they're incorporated into the action and cutscenes on here seamlessly in most cases made a good portion of them entertaining, but there were a few that I found just flat out annoying. Speaking of annoying, I understand that Laura's made out to be a bit of a helpless girl at the beginning of this game, and she's slowly evolving into the fortune-hunting mass murderer that we've all gotten fond of over the years. But her constant one-liners of reassuring herself to get through certain situations did get a bit old. Maybe that's just me being a little too picky, but as good as the voice acting is, I still got tired of hearing "you can do it" over and over again. But the character development through the cutscenes was great. Some of it felt a little rushed, but I guess they had to cram a lot into its 10 to 12 hour campaign, so it is forgivable. My biggest complaint with this game is this multiplayer. On one hand, the single player is so good that it absolutely just doesn't need that option in the game. So regardless of what myself or anyone else has to say about it, it feels like an added-on freebie. Kind of like going to McDonald's and the cashier tossing in an unordered cookie into your bag. I didn't ask for it, I don't really care that it's there, but if I want to eat it, then it's an option. The controls for single player were great, but for online play they just felt clumsy and loose for battling it out against your peers, especially up close. I love the graphics and the main story, but they just didn't transition well into multiplayer maps in my opinion, and finally the server stability seemed a bit iffy. As far as the single player mode, the developers could have went in a completely different Bayonetta-like direction and tried to make Lara more provocative and sexy, which would have been taking the cheesy way out to pull in some more gamers. Instead, they take you on an emotional, gritty roller coaster that's going to suck you into this game, and I think they made the right decision going that route. Do I miss the old versions of Lara Croft, the constant platforming, tough puzzles, and PG-rated gameplay? Sure I do, but that doesn't change that this is one outstanding game and most likely will keep the Tomb Raider franchise afloat. So if you're a true Tomb Raider fan and look at it from that perspective, it's hard to be upset at any changes that were made to make the game a bit more attractive and mainstream in hopes of possibly building an even bigger fan base for Miss Croft. This year I've already covered several blockbuster games that were worth picking up on day one, but this is the best game that's released this year so far. When you go down the list of what makes a game great, such as its graphics, gameplay, story, sound, fun factor, and value, Tomb Raider exceeds in all of those categories. I'm not sure what the budget was for the development of this game, but it sure does look expensive, and it's one that I would highly recommend picking up. Anyways, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.